Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Rovi, and MScribe, and today we're going to be talking about something interesting with SpiderPool and NAT.
Yeah, man.
And the whole...
Resurgence.
Resurgence, number go up technology, as expected.
Yeah, it was pretty expected. We made a video 6 days ago or so signaling that NAT is likely on a path to 100 million market cap. At least that's how we titled that video, simply because we felt like this milestone is a pretty big one, right? And we weren't sure if the market would agree or not, but we're starting to see evidences of agreement.
Yeah,
right?
SpiderPool definitely agrees.
SpiderPool agrees, and even some like other tertiary pool contributors are agreeing too, to the point where they want to switch camps, which is kind of hilarious to see. Yeah. If you ask me. Yeah. It's kind of funny.
All right, so let's take a look at what we're looking at here, and it is DMT NAT. It is at a market cap of almost 50 million. Mm-hmm. This is up 100% over the last
week or so.
Yeah,
quite the climb. So, price action is important, obviously, but what transpired as a result of this is even, I think, more interesting.
Yeah, to me, yeah. So the number go up in the last 24 hours, interesting. But what's more interesting, over the last 3 months, it's been going up.
Right. What you're going to see is a stark difference to a lot of these other now resurged tokens within the Bitcoin ecosystem, right?
Yeah. All right. So let's continue on here. So NAT GMI, if this is the first time you're hearing about NAT, I invite you to go to this website, natgmi.com, click on NAT paper, and read up as to why this thing exists and why it trends to go up where everything else trends downward.
Yeah, or simply ask an AI, whether it's ChatGPT or you own your own Claude instance of some kind, ask it to read it for you and be like, do a comparative analysis from fundamentals perspective, first principles, to all the other tokens of the Bitcoin ecosystem and weigh their differences. And your AI will probably break. In most cases, could be like, what other fundamental tokens are there in the Bitcoin ecosystem, dude?
That's right.
What are you even asking me?
Yeah, there are none.
Right. I would be kind of interested to see that report. But so, yeah, there's something unique to this token in the context of not just the Bitcoin ecosystem, a lot of crypto. This one solves a real big problem. Right.
Yeah. So SpiderPool. So what happened to SpiderPool? Well, big news. Earn double rewards per BTC block with Bitcoin and DMT NAT. SpiderPool is about to roll out DMT NAT as a co-mined reward on BTC blocks, meaning you'll earn extra rewards without changing a thing. So once live, same hash rate, same block, same wallet, one extra reward. NAT, no setup, no extra cost, just more earnings. Quick heads up, make sure to bind your NAT wallet after launching to receive your rewards smoothly. So this occurred yesterday?
Yeah. 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
But the reaction, this
was late 2 days ago. So It's been roughly 24 hours.
Yeah.
We have Tap Protocol, we got Rome, of course. Shout out to Rome. There you are. Everybody kind of commenting. And
this got a massive engagement, from a miner tweet. If you look at all the other miners and their Twitter feeds, not much engagement, not much interest, right? The Bitcoin mining ecosystem hasn't really changed much. It's probably since the beginning, right?
No.
So this is an example of what attempts at innovation and adopting innovative solutions to problems, what that could do from like a market point of view.
Yeah, so ultimately what's happening here is that we have miners contributing their power to a particular pool, and because you do that, you get a percentage of the rewards. Mm-hmm. That percentage comes from Bitcoin, and then in this case, it comes from Bitcoin and NAT.
Right.
So if you're contributing to SpiderPool, pretty soon you'll be earning 2 assets. Mm-hmm. All right, let's continue on here. So notice to all Bitcoin mining companies, so Foundry, Ampool, via BTC, F2 Pool, best outcome for your business is to be paying attention to what's happening with SpiderPool. Soon, nobody will accept a single subsidy earnings deal. Do not fall behind. So here's an example of someone saying, is there a tutorial to easily move my funds from Foundry to SpiderPool? I would like to earn NAT as well.
Yeah, which seems like a no-brainer, right? Like if you're, like who would turn down free money, basically?
Yeah.
Because that's essentially, if you want to boil down NAT to its most simplest of understandings,
for sure,
it's simply just more money for the network to do what they do to secure Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, and there's a higher upside with NAT too. So
yeah, much higher.
If you're going to be contributing to a pool, might as well contribute to a pool that's giving you a second asset, where that second asset could potentially 10x over 10 years or less.
I thought you were going to say 1000x, but yeah.
Or 1000x in 10 years.
100 to 1000x, who knows, right? And that's kind of the tidbit of interesting new variable for these miners, right? And SpiderPool is definitely setting a pretty profound precedent here. And yeah, I guess the best thing to do now is kind of like document what happens moving forward to, how many more miners will it absorb over time, in conjunction with if this price trajectory for NAT continues on the upside. I'm assuming that's going to be a much bigger draw over time for SpiderPool, and then most likely other miners will catch on to the memo, right, and get the idea here.
Yeah, so some of the miners earning NAT have used Ordinal's wallet to sell some NAT to pay the bills, right? So they're saying, do you see what's happening here? SpiderPool now has a major advantage over all the other mining pools. If the competing pools don't adopt NAT, they risk losing hash rate as miners switch over to higher rewards. So yeah, this is an incentive game. And the reason why NAT is so important is because over time, the security budget of Bitcoin is on decline relative to the network value of Bitcoin.
Right.
And that's because of the subsidy that continues to decay at an exponential rate every 4 years.
Which is Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah.
And so even, just like I'm sure the Bitcoin maxis are watching, they're for sure they know that Bitcoin is going to reach $400 trillion market cap. And I agree. I think it will get there. Could take 20 years, 30 years, doesn't matter. It's going to reach 400 trillion. But the problem is that once you reach 400 trillion, you need to double that to maintain the security, right? And so we know it's not going to go to 800 trillion, or maybe not within a reasonable amount of time. Even if it does, the security budget is on the decline, and so you need some sort of mitigator to prevent that from happening, right? As Bitcoin rises, the security budget should rise. Otherwise, you're going to get miners who disconnect from the network, as they've been doing to support AI and generate more income as a result.
Right.
So that's why NAT is valuable, is because it is not subject to a decay that happens every 4 years.
Right.
All right, so let's continue on here. So Rosic, NAT community is the meaningful moment. SpiderPool announced the addition of NAT into the dashboard. If you look at the timeline, you can see the growth has built over time, each integration, each release, each mention. And moments like this don't just happen. They are built by people who stay and kept contributing. So take a look at this image.
Yeah, this encapsulates all the moments, all the fun times that have been had over the last, 2.5 years? Just about, right?
Yeah.
November 2023. It's been about 2.5 years, guys. So a lot has happened since then. So that initial slide, I guess. What is that? He's like sledding on his way down.
Yeah.
That's how things started. There's that, and that's typically how once tokens are birthed, that's how it starts, right? There's an initial outburst of euphoria, and then a correction down as expectations become grounded, and then that's where the real work begins, which all these other images kind of portray.
Yeah, I remember Murad mentioning NAT and Bitmap.
Yeah, he did. That was a little bit of a catalyst, a jumper, and then of course the actual redirect moment happened at block 885588.
Yep.
Which is literally the point where the protocol started emitting NAT tokens on a per block basis to the miners, the block reward recipients.
And then not even like 3 months after that, Ampool started moving the NAT.
Yeah. That's when things started to get pretty explosive, right? It's like, okay, shit's getting serious now. It's starting to transform itself from like some idea some podcasters are throwing around.
Yeah.
To like, okay, this might actually change some things, right? And then, as you can see, a large subset of
activity, traction
following afterwards.
Yeah, so we have NatPool or NAT.fun announcement here, which it's not a coincidence. It's called NAT.fun, right? There's a reason why it's called NAT.fun.
Yeah,
and then of course recently the dashboard from SpiderPool.
and like 5 other miners that have interfaced with NAT ever since Ampool did.
Yeah, it's 4 of the top 5 miners are supporting NAT.
Yeah, so it's a lot has happened. It's been a crazy journey, but yeah, this SpiderPool event definitely sticks out because this is the first time, you know, the NAT is being distributed the same way Bitcoin is, right?
Yeah, yeah. So of course that it was trending. So you can see here SpiderPool to reward miners with extra NAT tokens alongside Bitcoin, and let's see what else is happening here. Toshi Chad. Top gainer in the category, we got Nat and then Ordi, and then Sats as well.
Yeah, hilarious, right?
Yeah, so Nat popped off first, and then everything else followed. I don't know if that's a coincidence.
Well, I definitely don't think so, because if you look at the charts of everything else, I mean, pure down only over the last, months. If you just go, everything's down, then all of a sudden it's not. Right.
Yeah, it's down for basically 2.5 years, and then it's not.
Right. It's one hell of a coincidence if, like, all of a sudden everything just decided, and it's not just Ordi, right? There's other charts here.
Yeah.
For other tokens.
So Ordi, and we got Track. Track's on the way up.
There you go. Keep clicking. There's more tokens here.
Dog on the way up. And
you gotta show the whole chart, dude. Or like the 1 year chart.
The 1 year chart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
very similar to Ordi, where it's just on like a downward trajectory, but then all of a sudden it goes up. Right?
Yeah. Coincidence? So, I don't know.
I don't think so. I think this is it's a good sign that like something, a catalyst of like that's actually fundamentally valuable.
Yeah.
Like sent some sort of market signal somewhere, wherever this. It's most likely rooted in the Eastern demographic.
Yeah.
Because that just seems to be like the core user base of Bitcoin and Bitcoin ecosystem assets. But
yeah, 4 of the top miners supporting NAT are also on the east side.
Yeah, so I think this is a little bit of like a reinvigoration of, all things Bitcoin ecosystem, which is important, right? Because in order for NAT to thrive, I think the entire ecosystem also needs to thrive around it.
Yeah.
Because that incorporates, Track Network, that incorporates TAP protocol.
That's right.
Ordinals itself has like a base layer to this whole meta protocol stack that makes NAT work.
NAT is built on top of ordinals.
It is. So yeah, literally these are layers upon layers of different protocols to like actually implement this mechanism.
Yeah.
That now acts as like a valid second subsidy to the network, right? So everything needs to kind of prop up, and we need to kind of get this sentiment up like the way it was a few years ago.
That's right. Yeah, and so likely Bitmap is next. So we have NAT pumping, Ordi pumping, Bitmap likely to be next, DMT units after Ordinals launching on NAT.fun. It's looking good here, and Bitcoin ecosystem is returning strong. Feels sorry for those who that left, which are a lot of people, right?
Including Magic Eden.
Magic Eden completely disappeared.
Completely left. They didn't just leave. Remember they
torched the where they were at.
The village, dude.
Yeah.
They napalmed us pretty bad. It was a severe attack.
Yeah.
Literally, they paid people to attack
our
little ecosystem, which is odd, but it happened, and it is what it is. So we're kind of like left to pick up the ruins, if you will.
Yeah.
That wasn't a jab at runes, but it kind of worked out that way.
Right.
So that this is an opportunity, right? We saw this happen in 2023. It's like, wow, ordinals is an interesting thing. And it was emerging at a time in the market where there wasn't many interesting things to look forward to.
Right, right.
FTX just happened. Just everything was down. Bitcoin, all the prices were like at their peak despair moments. So it's like...
Yeah, even the banking infrastructure was collapsing.
Yeah, then all of a sudden, some new protocol on Bitcoin emerged, and it gave us, a glimmer of hope. But the thing that was missing was infrastructure.
Yeah.
Was new providers of systems that can make the experience actually friendly enough to get things moving around.
Right.
So we're kind of like in that same state where the main actors have kind of like moved themselves out of the ecosystem. Clearly there's demand here.
Yeah.
We just we're showing it. Now we need a new era of what does the infrastructure look like for this next leg up. Right?
Yeah, so one of them is SatFlow. And so you could buy bitmaps, basically any ordinals that you want.
Including NAT
as well.
They have a tap section up there on the top left.
Here it is. Tap.
Yeah. Boom. There you go. So we have another surface area access point for the NAT token itself.
Yep.
And then, so yeah, without Magic Eden, there's also Ordinal's wallet, and I think LIFO FIFO, if I'm not mistaken, is working on NFT marketplace as well. So, not NFT, Ordinal's marketplace. Yeah. So, got to keep your eyes open for that because I'm assuming more demand will pick up for Ordinal's assets.
Yeah, speaking of demand, the first UNAT, which is the unique non-arbitrary token, is NAT Cats. And I would expect this one to explode pretty soon too.
Yeah, we got to kind of explain why, right? Because if NAT was the first like fungible token of the DMT protocol, this is the first like non-fungible one, basically. Yeah. So this one had its own heater of a rise up, run up.
Yeah, that was a 10,000x, dude.
Yeah, basically went from a free mint to each one of these floor price was trading at $10,000.
Yeah.
And there's around 8,000 of them. What makes this unique to other NFT assets out there? Well, it's non-arbitrarily produced, meaning there's a pattern on Bitcoin called 3B, and it's in the bits field, right?
That's right.
So anytime that 3B pattern appears again in a bits field data, more NAT Cats will become mintable.
Yeah, and between generations of a NAT Cat, there's been a span of 10 years.
And only like 4 birth periods.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is, so that in itself is like pure novelty, right? Like this, there's never really been an NFT, collection that has this type of these dynamics, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, there hasn't.
So the market appreciated that, and I think they will also because NAT shares those same properties, meaning like whatever the bits value is every block, that's what determines the supply of NAT that gets emitted.
Yeah, right? And as hash power go up in Bitcoin, the emissions of NAT goes down.
How come?
Because the difficulty adjustment, as the difficulty gets harder, the numeric target gets smaller, meaning it's harder to hit.
So that makes the bits value
less.
Smaller.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a natural built-in like emission curve or diminishing emission curve.
Correct.
That's not arbitrary, right? It's completely reliant on an actual successful outcome of like what the NAT token is intended to do. Is provide the right incentives to harden the security layer to bring in more hash power over time.
Yeah, and that's why it's called the non-arbitrary token, is because it wasn't designed this way. It was discovered, right? We're just using values within the block data to do this functionality.
Yeah, so all these weird new words and jargons we're kind of throwing at you, if this is the first time you hear about it, this is the fundamental principles of digital matter theory, DMT, non-arbitrary tokens. And it's what we're talking about. If Ordinals, Bitcoin ecosystem, NFTs, whatever, if any of these things are going to have a true resurgence, they're going to have to come to market with some new flavoring, something new to them, right? Yeah. And everything we just said, I think, qualifies as those new ingredients that make, digital artifacts on Bitcoin that much more palatable to a broader market, right? Because I've heard your story before, guys. Art on Bitcoin, we've run that already.
Yep.
So you're telling me it's art on Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's actually the producer of things this time?
Yeah.
Okay, that's different. That's new.
Yeah.
And as we've experienced on this channel over the last 7 years, that's the type of substance that gets the market moving, right? Whenever you actually introduce something new.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of something new, NAT.fun.
Yeah.
So the NAT token launched November 20th, 2023. And at that time, it did a 1 week blockout. So basically 800 or so thousand blocks were claimed by 20,000 people. And this was purely on Bitcoin, right? This is just purely ordinals. And so we said, well, what can happen if we combine a technology that has gotten market traction, such as bonding curves, and you connected that functionality with the patterns on Bitcoin using DMT? Like, what could you create? And that is what NAT.fun is. Right. And so with on Solana, you could launch these non-arbitrary tokens, and upon a blockout, meaning upon graduation, you distribute NFTs in the form of Solana NFTs or ordinals.
Yeah, inscriptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, so we're pretty close to launch. We're just working out some like last details, specifically because we really want this to be as user-friendly as possible, specifically on the Bitcoin side of things, because one of the big friction points is whenever the fees do go up.
Yeah.
Which they haven't in a while. But historically they have severely in the past. And especially whenever something new hits the market, it could potentially drive up fees significantly the way, you know, ordinals and BRC20s did.
Yeah.
So we need to be ready for that.
That's right. So for example, so what Iman is talking about is the novelty here in the ordinal side of things is that as a creator, you don't have to inscribe anything on Bitcoin. What happens is you launch a token on NAT.fun, and if it graduates, we will inscribe that information for you.
Yes.
So essentially, there's very, very little to no cost, right? The cost of launching a token is like less than $1 in Solana.
Right.
And so once you do that, if it's viable, we'll inscribe that data into Bitcoin, and then the creators have full capability to upgrade the art and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very complex system. We've even incorporated, you know, AI into this. If you don't have the creative ability to generate your own scripts, because this is code to produce these assets, well, we have an AI tool that can assist you in creating your own collection from scratch, right? Just by pure conversation, natural language models, you know. Yeah,
the AI will develop the code, which will generate your unique art. And then if you choose Bitcoin, we will inscribe that script, and it's forever on chain.
Yeah, and you could broadcast as you're iterating with the AI, your collection, in something called a vibe feed, right? That means people get to see the vibe you're cooking up. And as your token is trading, you know, they can make decisions on whether or not they want to be part of who receives these inscriptions once they pass that viability threshold.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to have more information on NAT.fun here pretty soon. So stay tuned. Follow the Twitter account here, NAT.fun. If you guys have any questions on the NAT token, please let us know in the comment section below. I appreciate you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.